when you're a kid, this is my experience of a kid, maybe not yours, and you go and you are with adults, the most common questions are going to be, oh, how was school? And then the next question usually is, what do you want to do when you grow up? Right? That's what adults say to kids, because we don't know what else to say to you guys, because you don't, what are we going to say? So when you ask a kid what they want to do, they say, oh, well, I want to be, but they want to be that. And the one thing I've never heard any kid respond is say, oh, I want to grow up and be a slave. I've never heard anybody actually say that. And yet, a lot of us end up being slaves. We don't necessarily realize it at first, but the whole story of the children of Israel, what were they? They were slaves in Egypt, right? We have all those pictures of Moses up here, so they were slaves. And the Lord gives us this story because a lot of times we end up slaves. And it can be slavery as far as a job, because we're so committed to making lots of money that we become a slave to that and we lose track of everything else in life. But we can also be slaves in our minds. How do we get enslaved? Well, if I wanted to, say, trap a lorikeet, how would I do it? How would I trap a lorikeet?
I would offer them food.
That's right. We have this experience plenty of times. Food out, lorikeet's in, cage over it. That lorikeet is our slave. If I wanted to enslave a fish, how would I do it? Throw out a rod, put out a lure. The fish would go, ooh, that tastes good. Home, dead, or caught at any rate. There are all sorts of things. The antifreeze, the coolant that goes in an engine of a car, it's poisonous. It's poisonous, but boy, it's sweet tasting. You leave that out in a bowl, you will get deer and all sorts of animals will come and they will eat that and they will die. And you can eat them. They will be your slave. You have enslaved those animals. Sweet things can enslave humans, right? If you love donuts or cinnamon rolls and stuff like that, you can become a slave to those things. And it's the same thing in our minds. We can kind of become slave to thoughts that we like. And let me show you just a short little video here of how this kind of can work in nature, which is fairly disgusting. So hope you enjoy this.
The day starts normally enough. You give your pet some food and water. But later, in your pet's water dish, you find this, a hairworm. It didn't get here on its own. It came out of a little cricket. Don't believe me? Okay. These hairworms are gnarly parasites. They actually control a cricket's mind to get to their home, the water. The hairworm's journey starts innocently enough in a river as an egg. One of many in this long string. The egg is squiggly larvae, which get eaten by a mayfly larva that also lives in the river. And inside the mayfly is exactly where the hairworm needs to be. The hairworm uses this pointy part to burrow into the mayfly's flesh. Then it curls up and waits. Because really, it's not after a mayfly, it's after a cricket. It sits tight, while the mayfly larva turns into an adult and heads to dry land, where it just might get eaten by a cricket that has no idea what it's in for. Inside the cricket, the hairworm goes at it, eating all the cricket's stored up fat for about a month. The cricket loses its chirp. Hairworm doesn't kill the cricket. because the worm needs a lift back to the water. Crickets usually avoid bodies of water. They're not great swimmers. So the worm takes over, boosting chemicals in the cricket's brain, which make the cricket walk around mindlessly until it happens to reach water. Scientists in France watch this infected cricket make a beeline for the pool. The hairworm makes a break for it. Still going. That's just, But don't worry. Don't target humans.
Lovely, huh? So you don't want to be a cricket, do you? No. So why am I talking about all this stuff? Because, we spend a lot of time showing you Bible stories and explaining how they apply to life. But one of the things that we don't talk a whole lot about is how spirits are with us, and spirits actually can affect what we think and what we feel, and vice versa. What we feel and think can draw in the spirits. And just like this hairworm can control the cricket's mind, the spirits that are with us can control our minds. And it's really kind of freaky to think about this in some ways, much like the idea of the hairworm controlling the cricket's mind. But, Swedenborg writes 34 volumes of books, right? 34 volumes. He spends 30 years of his life in the other world, and he writes quite a bit about our connection with spirits. And this is really important for you guys to understand, because if you understand how this works, then you can not be a slave to it. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to teach everybody in church, is how to not be a slave. Isn't that kind of one of the main points of it? Don't be a slave. But Swedenborg writes there's these spirits with us. There are good ones and bad ones. And the good ones want what? They want you to be happy. And the bad ones want what? They want you to be a slave. This is what he writes, Secrets of Heaven 28:90. He says, the evil spirits residing with a person, through whom he communicates with hell, see him as no more than their vile slave. They pour into him their own desires and persuasions, and thereby lead him wherever they wish. Just like the worm leads the cricket to where they want, the evil spirits that are with us lead us where they want. And I don't know about you, but that phrase, vile slave, just kind of sits in my mind. When you want to be a jerk, when you want to hit somebody, when you want to yell at somebody, when you want to have it your way, is that an angel talking to you, or is that a devil talking to you? That's a devil talking to you. And what does the devil want? He wants you to be his, or maybe her, slave. And I think, for me, when I think about it in those kind of terms, it kind of goes, whoa, wait a second, I don't want that. I mean, do you kids invite people over who are going to come over to your house and destroy your things? No? You don't invite somebody over who's going to come over and just, wreck your laptop or stab your ball and deflate it? No, you don't invite people over. Why do we do that to our minds, though? We let people come over and destroy our minds by letting them in, and we become their slave. He says, you can know by what spirits are with you by merely observing the quality of your loves. So if you're loving something about yourself, that's probably not a good spirit with you. Spiritual Experiences 133, for those reading along, this is what he writes. He says, with every evil spirit is the will to be the lord of others, and with some to be lords of the universe. That's what they want. They're trying to be the lord over you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. That's what they want. to control you. And it's kind of odd because a lot of us like to be in control. We like to be in control. I think I showed that quote the other week. You know, there's no greater desire than the love of self, or no greater pleasure than the love of self and ruling others from it. We like that. But when we fall into it, it's us who's the slave. We're being lorded over. We're the ones who are the slaves. I'll read this one here. Spiritual Experiences 29:24. Evil spirits look on an earthly human as a vile slave, unless they are those who think they are the person. How and how often they have attempted to take control of me and make me their slave, I am unable to recount. For all evil spirits have aimed at this. But when they do not consider the person they are with as a slave, it is because they imagine themselves to be that person, no matter how many there are, so they cannot harbor hatred against themselves. Neither do they know at such a time that the person is also a spirit whose body is joined to his or her spirit. They live in such ignorance, so they will not harm people and plunge them to their death. But with me, it's different, for they realized that they had been separate beings, so they made very many attempts, but in vain. Just now, when such spirits were present, I was enabled to make them think that they were me, which is done easily because they absorb portrayals of this kind. Then, while they were of this opinion, I was prompted to ask whether they are slaves, or whether I am a slave, or whether a master too, which later they said yes, thinking me to be themselves. Afterwards, they were indignant. So, what he's trying to draw out here is that if you understand what's going on, you can answer back. The Spirit's trying to control you and say, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And if you actually say, hey, wait a second, I realize this is just a spirit with me. This is something trying to influence me. I don't have to say yes to this. The truth is that this is something outside trying to influence me, so I can make it go away. One of the things that Swedenborg uses as a tool to get rid of spirits, he says that he mocks them. Now, I like making fun of people. That's good fun. You know, being sarcastic and berating, that can be good fun. And this is one way he encourages us to get rid of evil spirits. He says, I mock them. So, you know, some spirit comes along and says, hey, you know what? You should yell at your mom, or you should do this. You know, you can just sit there and say, you stupid idiot, I'm not going to do that. Why are you so stupid? Why would you be so stupid as to suggest that to me? I'm not going to do that. It's like you have like this kind of a kung fu warrior type attitude of like, man, come on over here, get your beating. I'm going to put a beating on you. You come over and give me those thoughts, I'm going to kick you out. Just like you would kick out somebody who actually showed up at your door to do these things. Just got to give them a beating. You got to get rid of them. This is why in the scripture, the Lord says, if you abide in my word, you're my disciples, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's the kind of freedom. He's like, you have the ability to not do this. He says, they answered him, we're Abraham's descendants. We have never been in bondage to anyone. Is that true? No. Liars. He says, I say to you, whoever commits a sin is a slave of sin. And a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free. And freedom, a lot of people think freedom is that ability to do whatever you want. If I say, Matthew, yeah, you're free to do whatever you want today. Oh, great, I can go and eat whatever I want. I can do what I want. Play on the computer all I want. I can do whatever. Ah, freedom, yes. But the reality is freedom is that ability to say no to things. That's when you're free. If I say to Zach, you're free to watch all the computer you want today, and he goes, yes, and he spends all day on computer, all he wants, but that he has to do it, then he's a slave. If he says, oh, I could play on the computer if I want to, or I could actually do this, then he's in freedom. If he can say no to it, he's free. But if he feels like he has to do it, he's a slave, even if he wants to. And that's what we're going for. We're looking for freedom, So the last thing I'll say here is, and this is I think the most important thing that Swedenborg says about spirits, he says, "Spirits with me who did not know I could speak with spirits were pleased to think that spirits control people and that they are the person they are with. But they were displeased that the person replied and was investigating their character and controlled them." Right? The spirits love the idea that they can control you, but they're not real happy about the fact that you can answer back and can control them. Because then they're no longer in control. You're no longer their slave. It's really important, because the people we surround ourselves with make our lives. Right? You surround yourself with good people, you'll be in good shape. If you surround yourself with bad people, to get you in trouble. And it's the same thing with the spirits in our minds, the thoughts in our minds. You put good thoughts in your mind, you'll have good people around you as well. Good things will happen to you. So it's really important that when you have bad thoughts, you're sad, you're depressed, you're angry, you're selfish, any of those kind of thoughts, they're not coming from you. They are not you. They're from these spirits who are trying to make you their slave. And your job is to answer back and control them. Okay? Amen.